Good morning, everyone. Welcome to BodhiBrew, offering advantage through insight. I'm your host, Confidee Kong, Creative Director of Bodhi Research Group. In today's episode, we cover operational alpha with the CEO of Innocap, François Rivard, and our founder and CEO, Dr. Ranjan Bhaduri. We dig deeper into the ecosystem of managed account platforms and talk about the common myths versus operating realities. Innocap is a leading managed account platform which benefits from François' 27 years of experience in the financial industry, specializing in derivatives and structured products. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy a cup of brew with us.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of BodhiBrew. And our fourth episode of BodhiBrew had been Untapped Alpha Managed Account Platforms. And this is an area that we really want to spend more time on because I think it's of extreme importance to the pension and sovereign wealth and endowment community. It's also something that is perhaps, in my opinion, the most innovative addition to portfolio management by pensions and sovereigns over the past 20 years in the absolute return strategy. That's a bold statement, but we're going to back it up with some more BodhiBrew, and this episode in particular will go into some of the details. I believe so strongly that managed account platforms should be utilized by most pensions and sovereigns that I think that if they are not utilizing it, it requires a statement as to why they aren't using it by the executive team that is written to the board of directors and signed off, because it really can add a lot of governance and security. And today, as you know, we're speaking with one of the world's experts, François, who runs a very large managed account platform. Welcome, François.
Thank you, Ranjan.
So let's try to debunk some of the myths, because I don't want to be the armchair quarterback on Monday saying, pension should do this, sovereign should do that. It's easy to, but let's try to answer why, some groups aren't using it. And I think that part of it is that there's some misconceptions. And from an educational perspective, I'd like us to address some of these misconceptions. And perhaps the largest one is from investment teams that believe it will reduce the opportunity set for absolute return strategies and hedge funds that they can access.
Right. And that's a fair misconception, and that we've heard that many times. And I think that it's actually quite the contrary. I think it increases the opportunity set, and maybe I'll debunk this, or I'll just go down to an explanation of what I mean. Number one, I think that we're facing a new era of collaboration between asset allocators and asset managers, like the asset managers being hedge fund managers, where it didn't used to be the case where hedge fund managers were going to allocators trying to get a ticket. They would go to an asset allocator and say, trying to get me a ticket into a commingled fund, and that the ticket would come and go, right? Meaning there would be no collaboration as to drafting up the strategy, looking at the strategy, adjusting the vol, or doing anything, because the commingled account was the master fund, and it was the only fund that was to be invested by the allocator. What happened over the past 10 years through the emergence of managed accounts is the opportunity for asset managers, so hedge fund managers, to understand that by partnering with the asset allocator and by trying maybe to design a purpose-built kind of hedge fund with maybe a different kind of vol, maybe with a different kind of opportunity set within the portfolio that was different than the commingled fund, asset managers would have an opportunity to get access to money that they would not normally have access to, because they are able to customize their strategy to the allocator. And by partnering with the allocator, it became less than a ticket. It became more of a partnership around, we're going to even give you some money. You're building a strategy that's a little different than your commingled strategy, because it reflects what we, the pension, want and need. And because you're doing this through a managed account, we're going to partner with you going forward in the allocation of our money. So there's a bit of a different kind of paradigm from actually just getting a ticket to a partnership with the community. So it's not a us versus them. It's not you would think in the past, hedge funds wouldn't want to come on a platform because they wouldn't want their ideas to be replicated. We have over 300 funds on the platform, very small ones, very big ones, and I'll go into the small ones in a minute. So all these funds, like the largest fund that we have on the platform is probably a $60 billion hedge fund manager, and the smallest one is a couple $100 million. So the idea for these people to get an access to more money by customizing some mandates has been very interesting to them in partnering with asset allocators versus just getting a ticket into a commingled fund. And if I piggyback on this, also the range of managers that a pension could look at is enlarged, because the range of managers, when you usually buy in a commingled account, you look at very large managers where they would pass all the ODD, all the IDD. They need to have very strong controls in place, a strong team, a strong compliance team, and then it eliminates a lot of smaller, very great managers that could create a lot of alpha for the pension, but because of the governance rules, it's very difficult to access this manager. Doing it through a managed account, you lessen this risk. You're building a managed account, you're facing the managed account, you're facing the governance of the managed account platform, which is very robust. And by doing this, you give yourself a chance to access additional type of managers versus just the original subset of managers. There's still large managers, mostly the multi-managers, the multi-pod managers that are difficult to articulate through a managed account. But aside from that, we've got all the strategies that's known into the alternative space on our platform that we make access to pensions.
No, it's excellent, and there's a lot to unpack in what you just stated, and it's very, like, I would say, profoundly important, because it's such a big misconception. So I'm going to just sort of echo what you just stated, but I will put it game theoretically. If an allocator is not utilizing a managed account platform, then they're really missing out on the space. Their opportunity set decreases, and that is exactly what you said. They may not be able to access emerging managers or seed managers or medium-sized managers that might not meet their standard from an operational infrastructure perspective.
Correct.
So that's one component of where your opportunity set increases. A second piece that increases is what you were speaking about, the customization. From the allocator's perspective, it's portfolio construction, and they have very specific needs, and they are looking for an investment that will fit those needs. And they may come across a hedge fund manager that would be a very good fit, except for the fact that it's trading in a sleeve that
isn't aligned with what they're looking for,
Exactly.
or is a little too much risk, or is a little too less risk,
Exactly.
or whatever. It's investing into a part of the world that they don't want to invest in. Not using a managed account makes it an impossible investment. Using a managed account gives them an opportunity to customize.
Exactly.
Right?
Like, if you're not using a managed account, you just become a taker.
Right.
One size fits all.
Correct.
And you have to take that. Now you can't. There's no possibility of customization, and so you miss out. And the customization increases the opportunity set in an exponential way.
It does.
And it's not necessarily either or. Most managers are okay with granting a managed account. They're happy to get the business.
Right.
It's only the very, very, very largest managers that are not offering a managed account. And if you believe from an allocator's perspective, they can still invest in that manager with their eyes wide open. But then for the majority of the rest of their portfolio, they can invoke a managed account platform. And I think that's where some allocators really, they have a blind spot to seeing that from a game theoretic perspective. The opportunity set, it increases so much. And I may be belaboring this point, but I've heard this so many times from so many allocators. And then, when we go through the analysis and the discussion, they usually see the light.
They do. And at Innocap, we don't trade. So they get very excited as well that we're not an investment manager in the pure sense of the word, where we take investment decisions. Their guards go down very quickly when they understand that we're not doing anything on the trading side or on the advisory side with their trading ideas. So we are completely unconflicted in the way that we approach the managers. So they get very happy with our demeanor towards having them on the platform.
Yes, and the fiduciary, the fiduciary duty and the governance and the security that the allocator enjoys. If a hedge fund manager chooses not to give a managed account, that's their business. They can do that, but they are putting themselves at a disadvantage in competing for business.
They are. I really like your opening statement of everyone should have only managed accounts, but I think it's not an only all or nothing strategy. I think every pension, sovereign, or allocator should have a managed account within a managed account platform. Obviously, I'm in the business of managed account platforms, so I would want them to have a managed account platform readily available for them to articulate their investment decisions through a superior way to invest in the managed account, right?
Exactly, and that's what I meant.
But it's not
Yes.
an all, like,
No.
they could invest into, they could have a couple of commingle, they could have a couple of multi-pods.
Absolutely.
And then complement their main allocation into the managed accounts, the different managed accounts that they could have on our platform with a couple of multi-pods like this. But they should all have at their disposal. They should all have that. I think that you're really, really right.
No.
I like your thinking around that.
No, exactly. And game theoretically, that's what I meant to say, that it's not that they can only use managed accounts. It's if they're not if they're not using managed accounts
Something's-
at all.
That's not right.
Right. And that's
And
where
that shouldn't be right. And boards should get
yes.
very worried when their investment teams are shying away from more control, more transparency. I mean,
Yes.
and
'Cause-
capital efficiency is something that we should talk about. And then, but
No,
but that's- 'cause that's-
yeah. One
that's
exactly.
because there's a true economic reason to use managed accounts nowadays.
We're going to get there
yeah,
for sure.
okay.
Like I just wanted to make this crystal clear to the audience. Like
Fair
game
enough.
and from a math perspective, game theoretically, what we're saying is that if you are willing, from an allocator perspective, if you're willing to invest in some large managers in a commingled way, as well as utilizing a managed account platform for the rest of your portfolio, then you're really getting the maximum opportunity set.
Right.
And so it's QED.
Right.
Now let's shift to the next misconception, which is that there are some folks who may think, okay, if the managed account platform is doing all this back office work in terms of risk monitoring and accounting and reconciliation, is it possible that this could take away jobs from the allocators, operations team or risk team and so forth? And maybe I'll let you comment on that.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, we're not in the business of taking jobs away. We're an enabler. So we are usually seen as an extension of the team, the operations teams, the legal team, the compliance team, the risk team, the front office team, the DD team. We're seen as an extension of them. At Innocap, we've got over 400 employees in 7 offices in 5 countries. So we follow the sun for them. So we are not seen as a competitor to their internal resources. We're very much seen as an extension of their team. And we help them try to access these investment through managed accounts by adding a layer of consistency in all of their allocation. So if you're investing into 5 different commingled accounts, you have 5 different kind of legal documents, you have 5 different kind of data sets that you're getting, you have 5 different kinds of, probably 5 administrators you got to follow, 5 different processes, protocols. When you do it through a managed account, we normalize all this information. So for the people that are within the pension fund or within the sovereign or within the allocator, get a normalized feed of information, a normalized documentation, a normalized, like anything that they would want as clauses of indemnity that they want as they want to see into the IMA between them and the investment manager. All of this is normalized and it's extremely appreciated by the people at the allocator because we're seen as an extension and we are an extension of their team. So we develop a very strong relationship with everyone in each one of these teams at all of our clients because we are and become an extension of their team and we simplify their life. We're not in the business of taking jobs or eliminating or just making their lives more complex. We make them more simple.
No, exactly.
And in the past, like there's so much technology that's been invested. I can speak for Innocap. There's so much money that's been invested in technology to facilitate the onboarding process, to facilitate the normalization of data, the enrichment of this data, the dashboards that we send in whatever format that they want. So we're very pro trying to make their lives simpler, not harder.
No, I think that's it's very well said, and it's just again to make it like to put that into to rephrase that in another way. As you said, you're making their lives easier, but it's also if you don't use a managed account platform, it's very true that hedge funds, the way that they report information, it's very fragmented. Hedge funds will report at different times,
Correct.
different days, different conventions, none of which is standardized, and
which complexifies the life of allocators. Right?
exactly. And so when you're utilizing a map,
Correct.
it's now in a much more uniformed way.
Correct.
And it is possible for the map, as you well know and you do, to customize that to the allocator's preferences.
Of course.
So if a risk management team internally within within a pension or an endowment is saying, okay, there's certain scenario analysis that we need or certain stress testing, those reports can now be generated. And this is simplifying it a little bit, but in essence, a map is doing the back office and middle office of a hedge fund, but with the fiduciary lens from the allocator's perspective.
And we work for the allocator.
Exactly.
So we're in the business of working for the allocator, trying to give them more control, more transparency in a normalized fashion.
Yes.
On an ongoing basis. It could be daily, weekly, monthly, but it's all normalized. So we become the best friends of the general counsel, the compliance people, the risk people, the internal risk people, the front office people, because they all want to see information in a different way. And then we're the provider of this information in a different way, but normalized across all their strategies, which is highly appreciated by the group.
It actually empowers these groups within the allocator. Like, for instance, a risk management team within a large pension may say, okay, we're from other parts of our business, we're exposed to so much counterparty risk from this prime broker or this bank. And now by utilizing a map, they can say, okay, for this investment, this map investment, we want to use these approved prime brokers, and we have a preference for this, or we have a preference for that. Like, the customization is very key. And so it is, as you stated, making their lives easier because you're able to provide that reporting more congruent to the prescriptions of the allocator.
Correct. And it also helps them, what we hear often from allocators, it helps them get new allocations through their investment committees. Because when their investment committees see that the fund is going to be on the Innocap platform, their guard goes down. They go, all right, we have a normalized and a standardized risk framework, compliance, data feed that we're going to get from an Innocap on an ongoing basis. So we just have to focus on, is the source of alpha that was identified the proper source of alpha? And then they look at the alpha more than everything else because we've eliminated all this other risk, and then we've normalized it into a fashion that the IC is very satisfied with, because we were approved upstream as their go-to market strategy when they were investing in hedge funds. So that's very helpful for the internal team.
It makes things go faster.
Fast.
Because they can focus more on the investment thesis and the portfolio construction.
They can. And on your comment on investment thesis, we do a lot of pre-funding analysis as well. So because we've got visibility on the allocator's allocation, let's say they have 5 or 10 hedge funds they're allocated to, and they're looking to add an 11th or a 6th or an 11th fund into the mix. Because we have all the data, we can help them look at the impact of adding this T+1 or this N+1 manager, so the 6th or the 11th, whatever. Like we can help them see the impact in the overall portfolio because we have full visibility, full transparency on the rest of the portfolio. So it empowers their decisions to make better informed decisions and hopefully make more money for the pensioners in the end.
So now I'm gonna go to a third misconception, and that is, hey, this can get really expensive utilizing a map. It's an extra layer of fees. It sounds great, but I don't want to pay those fees. I don't want that whole extra layer.
Sure. Listen, we get that all the time. We have, 40 allocators that go through the Innocap platform. We're winning some more on a yearly basis. If it was too expensive and didn't make sense, we wouldn't be this successful. That being said, I think that using a managed account platform has gone from a very defensive play where people wanted to get control and transparency, and there was a cost to control and transparency. And then people would say, well, am I willing to pay for this cost of control and transparency? But that was a very defensive play around managed account. But recently, with notional funding, with rates being a little higher, and with managed accounts getting better at building more efficient vehicles, we've moved from a defensive play to an offensive play where it's no longer a cost and it's no longer perceived as a cost. It's really perceived as an investment. So every dollar that people pay, like an Innocap platform, Innocap managed account platform, comes back like as an investment. So there's a return on investment. So it's no longer a cost, and people see this. So it eliminates just the very important control and transparency and governance aspect of a managed account. That's what's made this industry over the past 15 years, which I'm a big believer of, and I know you're a big believer of, given your first your opening statement. Now it's turned into an actual investment in capital efficiency. We can go through a capital efficiency example, but I think just to your comment, it's no longer a cost. It's really much an investment, and I think the world has seen this. Now.
And I'm just going to highlight a few really quickly, because I know that obviously allocators have a fiduciary duty to be very mindful of expenses and fees. And the truth is that there's many ways where a MAP can save the allocator money.
Right.
And I go back to that example of if an allocator is investing in the hedge fund manager's commingled fund structure, they're paying certain performance fee, certain management fee, but they're also paying expenses charged to the fund.
Of course.
Administrator, prime brokerage, the custodian,
the auditor,
legal structuring, auditor, and all of those
other fees. Like there's other fees that they pay, they charge. Sometimes some of them charge their marketing, some of them charge their data, their Bloomberg. All of these fees add up.
Yes.
Right.
Well, that's the second piece that, and that's a very important point that I want to return to. But even the first piece, the second piece I'll get back to, but the first piece is when they're making legitimate charges that are to the auditor or to the prime brokerage rates and so forth. These are areas where a MAP can gain really favorable rates. Because for obvious reasons, a MAP isn't tied to one track record, and a MAP is dealing with so many different clients and so forth, that a MAP has that ability to negotiate very favorable rates that can potentially save the allocator on these expenses charged to the fund.
Yes.
Your second point is really due to the transparency that some hedge fund managers are maybe putting in some expenses that could be questionable. Many are not, but some are. But with a MAP, everything is completely transparent with regards to all the expenses charged to the fund.
Correct.
And so this, eliminates, where this research is being charged to, this salary is being charged and so forth, where, I know instances, Bodhi Research Group has worked with allocators where that has happened, where, pre-managed account, they were experiencing some unnecessary expenses. There are many ways where an allocator can actually save money by invoking a MAP, but let's do a deeper dive on one of those components, which is a major component, cash efficiency.
Yeah.
And so maybe I'll
sure,
hear
with
your
pleasure.
thoughts.
So, on your point on saving money, like at Innocap, like over $60 billion in assets, we have a lot of scale when we negotiate with all the counterparties and when we negotiate with the administrators. So all our clients benefit from this, but that's just saving the money. But let's talk about capital efficiency, because there's an offense element beyond control, transparency, where allocators are actually making money. There's actual we call it operational alpha, right? I call it for sure alpha. I call it an ability to make sure that you're making money without having to make real alpha. Because you're operationally accessing your hedge fund vehicle in a more efficient way. Let's say you're invested into 4 funds, $100 million each. And then if you invest into a commingled fund, you need to fully fund your $100 million by sending $100 million in each one of these funds. So you're out money $400 million, and the hedge fund manager has $400 million to trade. So your cost of capital is on $400 million, and you generate your alpha on a trading level of 400, right? With a managed account platform, what we have the ability to do is look at the MTE on each one of these funds, look at the correlation level on each one of these funds, and extract some cash from these strategy by building some independent vehicles or commingling some of the structures, but they're your structures, so you're the only investor in them, so that's fine. So by doing this, we could save, just for the sake of argument, let's say we save you 50% of the cash. So $400 million trading level, I only ask from you $200 million because we look at the MTE and then we give some buffers and then we just make sure that there's, between the correlation of the four funds, we try to eliminate any kind of like calls that would make us call you on extra money. But for the sake of our argument, we return to you $200 million. Mm-hmm. So to get $400 million exposure, you now out money $200 million. So the other $200 million that we've sent back to you will have a couple of very favorable impacts for you. One, you're not going to pay any kind of management fee or performance fee on them, because if you don't have a hurdle in the commingled fund, you're paying management fee and you're paying a performance fees on these fees. So I've returned that. So that's money that you're saving. You've already saved that money. Two, you can do whatever you want with that money. You can either, if you're a pension and you're borrowing to get access to supportable alpha, then you can return it back to the pension. With SOFR at over 500, that's a large number of money. Or you could decide to reinvest in your portfolio. You could decide to say, you know what, we're going to increase our allocation and get hedge fund returns or get beta alpha. It doesn't matter, whatever you want to do. But you've got the flexibility and the optionality to be able to do it. Where if you're invested in a commingled account, you're not. So if you do that math, the for sure alpha is the part that we know that we can save you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%, depending on what you're doing with the extra money that we're saving you by returning it to you. So that's when I say it used to be a cost. It used to be, now it's an investment. That's the investment part of it.
That's well said. And just to give myself a plug, there's a paper that I wrote which got published in 2022 on structural alpha. So that
talks about this.
That talks about this, and that was in the Journal of Alternative Investments. The cash efficiency can be a really, really major play, and it's something that some of the most sophisticated and smartest pensions and endowments and sovereigns globally have been invoking, and so I look at it and I say that if you invoke a map, what you're doing is you're protecting on the defense in terms of against strategy drift, style drift, concentration risk, on fraud, all of those things. If you look at the major blowups through hedge fund history, and we talked about that in Untapped Alpha, but a lot of that, most of that could have been mitigated with the use of a map. And so that's on the defense side. On the offense side, there's the cash efficiency.
Right.
There's the increased opportunity set.
Yeah.
There's also,
extension of team. I think
team.
There's good
so
questions,
much.
but the debunking is important. Myth busting is important.
It's important.
And
the tactical tilting.
Yeah.
There's so much alpha that can be extracted by using a map, right? Like where if you're invested in commingled funds, the redemption process, or if you want to subscribe and a little bit
Gains,
more money,
side pockets. I mean, we could talk about this for hours.
Yes,
it's a superior. We call it, it's a superior way to access your investment. We're in the access play. We don't generate returns by making investment decisions. We generate returns by giving you more control, more transparency, and this capital efficiency. But it's a very strong way to access your alternative investment.
Well, we worked with a pension that made tactical asset, tilts. They were only able to do so because they were using a map investment. So on Manager X, which was on the map, they said, okay, well, we want to do risk on or risk off based on what their internal analysis had stated. And they were able to make these adjustments, which led to, a very profitable situation for this pension, which would never have been possible without the use of map.
Without the transparent, we saw that in COVID as well. Like, because you have full transparency on what's going on, you can take decisions with more clarity. So if you're seeing that there's a problem, like what COVID created into the world, there's a big market event. If you have no transparency what's going on into your underlying strategies, you can't take an additional kind of decision to overweight or underweight because you don't know what's going on. But if you've got the transparency, you can overweight or underweight, and you can make some tactical moves into your allocation.
And you can do it quickly.
And you can do it very quickly.
Even if you had that transparency,
and it's your money.
You can't do it quickly.
Because you've got the control over the vehicle, so you can do it quickly. There's no side pockets. There's nothing else that's preventing you from doing this. So I'm sold to manage accounts, Ranjan, as you can see.
So this was a little bit of the church to the choir, but there's a really, really important reason why, because from an educational perspective, this is again something that is being utilized where the smart money is but there should be many more pensions, sovereigns, and endowments utilizing a map. And any final words, François?
Well, I'm sold to control, transparency, and capital efficiency, and we're open to having any kind of allocators talk to us if they want to have more education around these topics and maybe get understanding how others are accessing their hedge funds through managed accounts platforms.
So thank you very much for listening to this episode of BodhiBrew. Thank you,
Ranjan.